Hey y'all, and good now, whenever and wherever this finds you. Well, they say when you start hearing your messages in stereo, you might want to pay attention. And what I'm hearing in the last few days is about the American empire losing control and power in the world.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Can you believe the arrogance and hubris of this guy? And he was running a big piece of the government and a lot to do with the military and the wars, and how he's making fun of our values as Americans. He lied, he cheated, he stole. And people laughed and they thought it was funny. And they think this is what America's supposed to be. No, you've all got it wrong. And it's time for us to come together as America and tell these people that they got it wrong. There are two ways that we dominate and terrorize the world. And one is the military, which we just looked at. And the other is the economy or the dollar. So here's you something to take a look at and think about as this guy starts to explain how our money is affecting the rest of the world.
Everything goes up. If you have hyperinflation, I mean, look how high the Zimbabwe stock market went up in Zimbabwe dollars. But who cares about Zimbabwe dollars? And pretty soon, people might be saying, who cares about U.S. dollars? It's pretty obvious that this is going to happen. The world is hemorrhaging right now from the dollar standard. The fact that the dollar has been so strong against the pound, against the euro, against the yen, that is exacerbating their problems. We are exporting our inflation to the rest of the world, and now they're having to deal with it. The problem is we just print money. We have these massive trade deficits. We're importing all this stuff. We're sucking up the goods. You know who gets this? Vladimir Putin. Listen to some of his speeches. He understands this parasitic relationship that we have with the world, where we just print money and we buy stuff. We don't have to make the stuff. The rest of the world makes the stuff. We just create the inflation to pay for it. We are spreading misery all around the world, and we are living off the fruits of the rest of the world. And the world is like, no, we don't want to do this anymore. There's going to be a revolution against this system, because the winner is the United States. The loser is everybody else. Now, as an American, yeah, this was a good deal for us. But I know that it's not going to go on forever, because the rest of the world is not going to stand for it. And we've really pushed them in that direction recently by weaponizing the dollar. The stuff that we're done recently, with sanctions on Russia. This is just accelerating that process.
The other big news is similar. Very few weeks ago, the Saudi Arabian government, together with Russia, and the other 23 countries that together make up the rest of OPEC Plus. Those 23 countries didn't take very long to say to the United States, a few weeks ago, your President Biden went to Saudi Arabia asking them to produce more oil. Not only did they not do that, a symbolic increase, very small, but they've really taken a big step by cutting it right in his face. The United States empire isn't what it was. And let's be clear, that declining power is also now accumulating enemies, people who feel aggrieved by and are beginning to hit back at the United States. Saudi Arabia, Russia, the BRICS countries. And you know what this all shows, besides that our inflation is probably going to get worse before it gets better? It shows that the power of the United States isn't what it once was.
I mean, there's affiliations being created right now, which actually, are not only against America's interests, but they juxtaposed with our policies right now. We're isolating ourselves from an emerging new world, and it's old thinking. We have to realize the world's changing, and why should America be stuck with 19th century thinking in the 21st century.
China has shown its ability to develop virtually every industry. That's not going to stop. They're very good at it. They have lots of friends around the world to trade with and to pick up what they can't get from the U.S., and they'll develop it themselves. They'll probably work with India. And do you really think it's a wise move for the future of the American economy to cut itself off and create this bad blood with the two largest countries on the face of this earth, India and China, that together have 40 to 45% of the population of this planet? Do you really want to be excluded from the biggest, fastest growing market in the world, which is what the Chinese already are?
And we want to go around the world telling other people how they should live, spending our money in pursuit of some kind of chimerical dream of global omnipotence. Give me a break. I mean, really, it's like this is a get real moment in America. It's a moment to start taking care of things here at home. And we certainly have to do something.
The world's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia, is reportedly asking to join BRICS. The regional bloc, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, has been touted as a serious counterweight to the Western-led world order. Just a week ago, during his visit to Saudi Arabia, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman expressed the kingdom's interest in joining BRICS. Saudi Arabia, home to 17% of the world's proven oil reserves, maintained close security and economic ties with the U.S. for decades. But since the election of Joe Biden, Riyadh has seen its relations with Washington worsen sharply. Earlier this month, OPEC Plus announced it would cut oil production by 2 million barrels a day. The U.S. blasted Saudi Arabia for the move, saying it would directly support Russia and hurt U.S. consumers ahead of next month's midterm elections. The BRICS countries have long called for new financial centers to counteract U.S.-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Would Saudi Arabia's inclusion into the group help BRICS achieve that goal?
Do you really want to have a foreign policy that makes enemies out of all of them? Are you going to fight wars everywhere, all at once? Really?
We need to take a totally different direction in the world. And we really need to pay attention to that biblical injunction about blessed are the peacemakers. We have an obligation to the world community to go with these rhythms of change and not to try to continue to insist on a unipolar world with an American imperium. It doesn't work anymore. We're past that stage.
I'll be honest with you. I want the empire to end, not in a painful way, but in a non-painful way. Because look what we're doing. We're killing people. We're sending weapons to a war. And meanwhile, we're not paying attention to the climate change. We're not paying attention to the inequality. We're not paying attention to the mass incarceration. We're not paying attention to all these social ills. And so that's what I want. I want the focus to move off of this empire where we terrorize the world militarily and economically and control everything through violence. That's what I want to stop. I want to stop the violence. In my last video, it was really clear to me how this could happen if the world came together and moved from competition to cooperation, and we all decided to work on the major issues of our time, which is climate change and end the war and end poverty and end inequality. If we all decided to work on that, I could see how that could work. But I couldn't see how in this country we're going to get there because we're so polarized. And then I realized this video says The world is going to move us, and we no longer are the big boy. We have a gun, and we have some play money. People in the world ain't buying it anymore, and when they quit buying it, move us to get in line with the rest of the world and become part of the community, of the world community, rather than this outsider trying to control everything. I think this video has made it clear that the world is ready to come together in cooperation and generosity and give to their peoples those things that we most cherish, which is peace, prosperity, happiness, and liberty. So I find this all very hopeful in the sense that I believe the people that are trying to hold on to power are going to be very disappointed, and that what's going to happen is that we, the people of the world, I mean, I was watching today, they're all over the world. They're out in the streets. I mean, it's changing. You know, some people would say, well, you know, it's not going to change anytime soon. And I think it's going to change sooner than you think. And I do believe that if we have the right attitude and we go about this in a good way, this can be a positive experience. I can tell you from my life, not having a large amount of possessions is not really that bad of a thing. It's actually very freeing, and it's very, it just leaves you with yourself, your happiness, and your joy. When I was talking about no possessions, it reminded me of the Rock and Roll Party Manifesto, which was now the People's Transition Party Manifesto, which is, imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. But I find it absolutely amazing that we have this song, and now we're on the eve of realizing this as a reality for the universe. Most of my friends live lives of unconditional love and support for themselves and others. So we're not far from it now. And speaking of which, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you down the road.